As we look at our goals for health and adventure in the coming months, we must ask ourselves the question, what have we been doing daily to support our well-being? And many of us may respond with the idea that we've failed at our attempts and we just don't know or have the willpower that others seem to have. And the defeatist mindset may be what has been keeping us in that low energy, low vibrancy, low health rut for many years. What is changing for you today? And when are you choosing to make a difference? My guest today struggled with obesity and health challenges from his childhood. And in his corporate world, he felt the weight creating a bigger burden. My friend Deepak Saini is an anti-aging and longevity coach. He has overcome an autoimmune condition, a back injury, and his lifelong battle with obesity. His unique perspective on how to be motivated to make life-gifting changes may speak to your desires for more. You're listening to Be Well with Michelle Greenwell. This is Season 2, Episode 7, Your Longevity Health Plan with Deepak Saini. Welcome, Deepak. How are you?
I am well, thank you. And episode 7 is my lucky number. So I don't know how that worked out, but that's awesome. Yeah, no, thank you for having me on today. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, numbers are wonderful, right? To do those reflecting pieces on. So I'm thrilled too to be in Season 2 and the advancement of what's happening in the bioenergetic wellness field, and just where people are taking conversations now over Season 1. It's really, really interesting. Before we get off and running, because I know you and I can get into many different conversations, what we should talk about is what is in your mug of vitality today.
Yes, I have 2 going today. So I have my, it's still early where I'm at here. So I still have my bulletproof coffee that I'm finishing up from earlier. But I also have from the Cape Breton Tea Company, I have some Island Bliss, I believe is the one that it's called, if I'm not mistaken.
Island Passion?
So
yep.
I'm looking. Island Passion. Thank you. Yep. Sorry. Yeah. Tranquil Bliss is what it says on the back. Island Passion. Yeah. So I'm just letting it steep a little bit and I'll be drinking that throughout our conversation today.
Awesome. And what kind of mug is it sitting in?
Oh, back when I worked corporate, one of my summer students gave me this sleepy before coffee mug. So that's what I chose for today. I don't know why. It actually was just the one I grabbed, but maybe it signals, I'm still trying to recover from a late New Year's Eve evening. So.
And you have a 7th dwarf on there as well, right?
And I have one of the 7 dwarfs. Yes. Yeah.
I was laughing thinking 7. About the numbers. Yeah. I also think it's also interesting, right, what you put your coffee into and what we put your tea into. So your coffee mug, what does it represent for you?
Oh, that's interesting. I never really thought of that. I mean, it's some branded from a company that I used to work at many, many years ago. Stainless steel, solid, it retains, I basically use it because it just retains the heat. So I don't have to drink my coffee so fast. I can spread it out over like an hour and it stays warm. Yeah, I never really thought of what it represents, but yeah, that's why I use it, because I don't want my coffee getting cold, because we can quite get into, as a creative, get into a flow, and then next thing you know, you're like, oh, I'm thirsty, or I need a little jolt, and your coffee's cold, and you're like, oh, I haven't had a sip in like 30 minutes or whatever. So.
And that's my tea. I very often end up drinking it cold, which is what's lovely about the herbal blends, is they are great cold and hot, because very often, I started hot, but I never finish it hot. So.
Yeah, I like to actually drink cold tea, especially in the summertime. I'll make a big batch, like a big pitcher of a variety, or even a green tea with a little lemon juice or something to it. So.
Exactly. I put together today, I've got my Polar Express mug. I know there's a reflection on the train there, because I was in your neck of the woods just a couple of weeks ago, and I got to go to Stettler, Alberta and ride the Polar Express train. And this is my keepsake from that. So on the back side, it says, Christmas warms the soul and tickles the heart. And also awesome. The idea of being able to believe and hold on to the idea that magic does happen every day. And inside I put hugging the holidays, because even though we're at the end of the holiday season, for me, it's like the holidays go all the time if you think about living that way. So that's what I added
Yeah,
to
I love
mine.
that. I love that. Yeah,
So cheers to
fantastic.
you.
Let's, yes, let's, I don't know, do virtual cheers here.
And we
There
say
we go.
Slàinte Mhath here in Cape Breton.
Slán Siobhan.
And that should get us started.
Oh, I like that. Nice.
Yeah, mine has a hint of cocoa on the end of it. So it starts as a tea and finishes as a cocoa. So, but I'm glad you're enjoying the Island Passion. That's great. It's been a
So I have to say my wife is enjoying it as well. She's had it a number of times.
Perfect. It's one of that blend actually has been one that over time has been one of our longest and best selling teas. There's two. There's the Island Orchard and then the Island Passion, and those two for longevity. Yeah, just that nice warmth, and the herbs in that one are all things that you'd find in the garden and fragrances that you'd have in the yard, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
It smells lovely as well. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So let's dive in a little bit to your story. And I'm curious for what was your turning point? I know I listed some of the things that were your challenges as you were growing up and also into your corporate career, but what was your turning point that made you change that mindset and create the space for you to overcome the burdens that you were carrying?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. So I'm going to kind of answer it in a two-part way. So yeah, you listed those things: autoimmune condition my entire life, overweight, chubby my entire life, morbidly obese as a teenager. But the real impetus for me for my change was 8 years ago when I hurt my back really bad, and I wasn't able to bend over. I had no flexion in my back, so I couldn't put on my shoes very well. Couldn't put on my socks. Hard getting in and out of a chair, which includes the toilet. But the real impetus was our youngest daughter was just a baby at the time. I couldn't bend over enough to pick up a 10-pound baby out of her crib. So that was kind of the low point, which got me moving, started the healing journey from many aspects, and then got me to, heal myself and what I do now today. But the other way I would answer it is, when you struggle with health issues your entire life, you're trying to just make it to the end of the day. You have brain fog, you're tired, low energy, inflammation, your joints hurt, etc. You're just trying to make it to the end of the day, make it to the end of the weekend, looking forward to that vacation that might be coming up in a few months. And then even from a mindset point of view, around, just use money as one example. It's like, if I just get that next promotion, if I just, get that next bonus, or et cetera. And so just very short term kind of hamster wheel, if you will. After I came through my health journey, came out the other side and realized, just the potential for health in general. And then that just opened my mindset to possibilities. And it's like, why do I have to, believe what I believe society's conditioned us to think, aging is inevitable. And, once this happens, then this happens. So I opened my mindset and realized, like, no, I don't have to. I can buck the system, if you will. I can live, have a long health span. And I have a publicly stated goal to be a centenarian plus, so live 100 years or more. And that doesn't mean what most people think of, that maybe people have seen with their parents or their grandparents, of being in a home or dementia or Alzheimer's or something to that effect. That means, for me, it means living in my own home, playing with my great grandchildren, paddleboarding, snowshoeing, whatever that looks like, and being in control of myself. So once I made that mind shift change, it's like that, the sky's the limit.
Beautiful. And isn't it interesting too, when you think about, that's what I want, rather than just to get to the end of the day?
Absolutely.
Because what is that every day? Yeah. So what do you think is the key reason that others can't get out of their own way, and then why they just can't seem to find the health and longevity that you've discovered?
Yeah, so one thing I think, like I already touched upon, is, we've been conditioned by society that, Freedom 55 and all these media marketing terminologies, and that, retirement is at this time. And then, then we have these, especially in the Western culture, maybe not so much in Eastern cultures, then, it's like, when then you downsize and you go into a 55 plus or 65 plus community, and then et cetera, et cetera. So I think we've been conditioned by society. I think that's number one. Number two is again, sort of that goes with that mindset that I said, people need to know there's more possibility. There's a lot of, I feel a lot of, misinformation and even myths out there that maybe were true at one time, but as science has evolved and our understanding around health has evolved, we're still clinging to these notions from the 1960s and the 1970s, when there's cutting edge science and things of we just know this is not true anymore. It takes so long to trickle down to people to actually start to believe. So it's just the mindset that yes, you can do this. And I think the other things, and most people know, at least at a high level, like I should be eating better, I should have movement, I should exercise, and maybe a few other things along the way. But it's really that accountability. I guess two pieces, putting all the pieces together. And I kind of work with 7 big buckets with people, but putting all those 7 pieces together. But then it's the accountability. And I think that's where a coach, a mentor, what have you, really comes into place. Because people, again, we're right here, we're recording this, the beginning of the year. I bet a lot of people have New Year's resolutions or goals, and how many are going to last 30 days from now, 60 days from now, right? So it's having that accountability and what that looks like for people and what they need. So I think those 3 things are conditioned by society, the right mindset, and actually having true accountability.
Perfect. So you talked about, you've got the 7 aspects or buckets that you use in the work that you do. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that and what it makes your approach unique to what other approaches they may have tried and failed at? What makes yours that unique perspective that could lead them to their success?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people know intuitively some of these areas that they need to focus on. It could be nutrition, it could be movement, or maybe even they know they need to do both of those. But again, the 7 buckets for me is like, it all comes down, it starts with mindset and motivation. If you don't know why up here or in your heart, why you want to make this change or whatever your goal is, it's not going to happen. Or you can for the short term, maybe even you can stretch it out like 2 years just through sheer willpower, but that long sustainability is not going to happen if you don't, have it up here and in here. So that's number one. And part of that too, included in this big bucket of mindset motivation, is community and gratitude and all those sorts of things. Then of course there's the nutrition piece. I call it controlling your glycemic variability. So not having the highs and lows of your blood sugar. Supplements can play a role in that as well. There's, of course, the movement piece, and that looks like different things for different people. And I think we'll probably touch upon that a little bit later. And then, managing your stress. Sleep is huge, breath work is huge, and a lot of other things that fall in sort of, let's call it the stress bucket. Controlling the environmental factors around you. The chemicals. We can't get rid of them. We can't put that genie back in the bottle, but let's try and mitigate the damages from our environment and the things that happen. Then there's the second last bucket is what I call don't do stupid things. But essentially it's a risk reward. Every decision we make has a risk reward assigned to it, and just making sure people are aware of that. If you want to ride a motorcycle or skydive, okay, fine. Whatever you want to do, fine. But take some steps proper, and that could even mean from a supplementation or a nutrition point of view, to prepare yourself for the worst case scenario. We never hope it happens, but to prepare yourself. And then the last bucket, and again, it's not for everyone, is sort of, let's call it the advanced scientific modalities, the cutting edge things that are out there that are available. That's not necessarily part of, we live here in Canada, both of us, the public system, or even in the US where there's more private. It's not well known, but well documented, approved, FDA approved, some of these things, but just nobody knows about them, or they don't have the access to them. So again, for those people who are willing to push the envelope, who have the resources to get stem cells done, get PRP done, medical tour, all these sorts of things. So again, that's not for everyone, but for those who want to do it, then that's also something I help my clients find and curate for themselves.
Oh, that's very interesting. Most people don't have that on their list. That's interesting. Okay, so when you have a client who starts out down the road, and definitely we're at the start of the year, so people start off down the road, and we talk about, that the burnout on the resolution that happens February, March. But what is it that you find over time with clients who start off down this road? What motivates them to go back to those old habits?
Yeah, I'm going to answer the question. I'm going to flip that on you. So what motivates them to stay with their habits? So again, I really, with my clients, really at the very beginning, right, mindset motivation, I really dig in and really get people to understand why are they making this choice in the first place, really get to their why or their purpose, as I like to say. What is in their heart? Is it, I want to be around for my grandchildren, I want to be present in their lives, or whatever the case may be, and make sure that they understand and make sure that's really strong for them, so that when they're done working with me, 6 months after they're done, a year or 2 years later, they can always go back to that. It's like, why did I start that? Why did I make these small changes, these incremental changes to my health, to tie it always back to that purpose, to that why for them. Now, I'll be honest, not all my clients, keep up with it for years and years and years, but most, if not all of them, even if they regress a little bit from when we stopped working together, they're so much further along than where they started, right? Maybe over the course of time working with me, they changed, 20 habits for the benefit. And even if they regress on 2 or 3 of them, they're still 17 habits ahead, and they're so much better off than where they were before. So that's kind of how I look at it. People are going to potentially regress in certain areas, but they're not going to go back to where they were before working with me, because again, they made all these things, they made a part of their lifestyle, all these changes. Plus they have such an ingrained, in their mind and in their heart of like, why I did this in the first place.
Yeah, that's interesting when you think about the levels of change that happens, and then the opportunity to reflect on, because we always reflect on the negative side, right? So we always have that view, I failed at this one, even though if there's 17 others, right? But then also that opportunity to look at it and how has my life changed? And those 3 that I am not following quite the same, is it important? And if it's not important, maybe then there's that shift that comes out of that, of what do you want next? And so those pieces aren't as important as another change they might have made.
I'm going to share a story really quick, if that's okay. I was working with this lady earlier this year, 73-year-old woman, and we only worked part-time. She didn't have the resources to work fully in my program, but I know her children, so it was a bit of a relationship we had there. She had some certain medical metrics, let's call it, that she wanted to improve on for her doctor. So after just a handful of sessions, either spaced out over every month, we met for 6 months, and she made improvement on those, but it wasn't exactly where she wanted to be or exactly where her doctor wanted her to be. But in the process of trying to improve on those health metrics, blood pressure, those type of things, she ended up losing 32 pounds in the 6 months. And she was all down on herself. Oh, my blood pressure's better, but still high. And my blood sugar's improved, but it's still a little bit. And my cholesterol's improved, but it's still a little bit. And I was like, hey, I obviously won't say her name for confidentiality, but she was like, hey, you lost 32 pounds. That wasn't even one of your goals. And you improved all these things. Yeah, they're not exactly where you wanted, but you made it on all the metrics we were tracking. You improved. Like, celebrate this. This is huge. Don't let, your doctor downer because you didn't hit this one thing bring you down. You've made tremendous improvement in the last 6 months, and just keep at it and you will get to where you want to be. So I think that's a big thing that people have to recognize. And it's human nature to focus on the negatives and the positives, right? So.
And just that idea too, that if it wasn't in your vision, you wouldn't use it as an evaluation marker. So to be able to open up your spectrum of seeing to what are the other things that have changed in my life that I wasn't anticipating, but also that led me down a road of different discoveries that allow me to live more fully because I made choices over here and it influenced over here where I didn't realize I was going to make those changes.
Absolutely. Everything's connected. Our body's connected. You make one impact somewhere, it's going to make an impact somewhere else as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So how did you come up with your 7-step approach? What are the pieces that led you to bring those 7 pieces together?
Yeah, great question. I've done a lot of research. I've done, 8,000 hours of research on various topics, and a lot of certification, all that kind of stuff too. I guess trial and error is kind of one thing that can't be discounted, to like actually working with people and see what works. And from that also is like, not everyone is the same. I'm a huge believer of individualization and customization. So there's, some guiding principles and sort of a blueprint to work with people, but it really gets nuanced when you work with people. The other thing is the blue zones. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm planning to be a centenarian, and not all my clients want that, but those habits of the most long-lived people are a good guiding post of what we should do for our everyday lives. So did extensive research on the blue zones and what are some similarities between them. A lot of them, they have different movement patterns, they have different nutritional patterns in all these different places, but there are similarities. So making sure that those similarities tie in, and then just being well breadth in, again, through the research of all these different modalities in any one of those buckets, including nutrition. If somebody wants to be a carnivore on one end to vegan on the other, that's fine. That doesn't matter to me, but we got to make sure it's structured properly for their goals. So just really, again, customization and individualization and just seeing what works.
And I noticed on your social media, your posts with you jogging and running, what kind of movement pieces do you put into your regular regime?
In my regular regime? Oh, that's a good question. So I'm a huge believer in lot of daily movement, and we can't just do it all in one day. You can't just do a 3-hour bike ride or spin class or whatever and then sit for all day long. So I work from home. This is my home office. I do a lot of content creation, consultations with people, but I try and take little breaks all throughout the day. My aim is 10,000 steps. Not that that means anything. That's kind of a made up number, but I think it's a good gauge for movement. I try and move all throughout the day. We got a new puppy, so he's got to go out, take him for a walk a lot. I do 30 minutes per day of, I'll call it moderate to intense cardio. We have an elliptical machine. So I make sure I get that in, a lot of low level movement. And then twice a week, and only twice a week, and sometimes it changes if I'm on vacation or something, I have a little bit more time. But only twice a week do I do strength training. And I think, again, that's really important for people as they age to, have not only healthy bone density, but lean muscle mass, so we don't get sarcopenia and other things, other conditions as we age. So twice a week strength training, every day, short, moderate to intense cardio, and then lots of low level movement, walking, etc. And playing too. Actually, I want to mention also playing, just goofing around with the kids, throwing the frisbee around, playing tag with in the summer, that sort of thing. So just have fun. And when you play and you do youthful things, you stay youthful.
And so if you were working with seniors, so as you were talking about the client that was 73, what kinds of recommendations do you offer for them when they don't have a little person or a pet that maybe will sidetrack them and get them moving? What are some of your recommendations you'd offer there?
Yeah, so again, it's going to be individualized. So it depends what if they have mobility issues and, it's very customizable. But in general terms, and I'll just use this one person example, she actually liked to bike ride. And she, had a bike, and even in the winter, she had a indoor trainer, so she would hook it up and just spin. So okay, you already like doing that, do it. Lots of walking. She likes gardening and that sort of thing. So her regular daily activities. But one thing we did add for her was just very light body weight only strength training to build lean muscle mass and bone density and all those sort of things. So I think a lot of seniors I come across, and I don't work exclusively with seniors, but they seem to be scared of going to the gym or strength training or lifting heavy weights, like you can just, I mean, it depends on where you're at. Obviously, it's customizable, but just doing body weight things is already going to make a huge benefit to doing nothing. So I think there needs to be a blend of you got to do a little bit of activity to get your heart rate going for that cardiovascular health. Strength training is super important for everyone, and then a lot of low level movements. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And can you tell me a little bit more about people how they can find out about you and about your approach? Some of the areas that they might be able to explore what you've been talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we'll probably have all my links in the show notes, but I would want to, if you want a high level of like kind of what I'm about, it's not everything that we talked about today, but I do have a free guide that people can download. And it kind of gives you, and it's a tracker, so it kind of gives you 30 days of tracking, so to sort of build that accountability, build that habit building in various areas. So it's deepaksainehealth.com/freebie. So I think that's a good high level approach of how I work with my clients, as well as a tracker to try and make some habit changes for 30 days. I have, I mentioned, working with people earlier. I have actually starting this year a new group program that I'm working with people. So it's a shorter 10-week program. Again, high level, it gets into those 7 buckets, gets into the first 5 of them, and in an in-depth way. And so that's another way, at a lower price point for people. So that's another way that people could get a flavor for working with me. And I have a pilot, my first time running the group program, starting here in a couple of weeks, and then again in April, we'll be having one. So yeah, people are interested in learning more, I'd say start with the download. And if you're interested and want to know more, then you can reach out to me in social or even join my new group program.
Perfect. That's great. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to mention or talk about that maybe I didn't ask you?
No, I think we did a great job, high level. I think just one thing I'd say with people is, if you're going to work with someone professionally, then, just make sure that, I think one, they should have some certifications and some trainings and that sort of thing. I do believe in that, but at the same time, I think what's even more important is just somebody who relates to you as a person, that you connect with, and that, is going to be really supportive of your goals. And, it's unfortunate, I've been in this industry for a while, that the number or their goals are a number, and the coach or the mentor, or, is all about them, getting from A to Z. Maybe it's losing 20 pounds or whatever the case may be. And that's just the number. Did we get to that? But again, I think there's so much more. It's about, building the community and that mindset and, that purpose and that why. So again, just if you're going to work with somebody, professionally, just find someone that really understands you and that you really connect with. I think that's more important than, what their background or certifications or anything, although that is important to make sure you got a qualified person. But I think, connection and stuff is much more important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I know that even with my own students and the ones too that stay around and continue along with your program, there's just such an incredible rapport and I guess dual feedback, right? That happens when that click happens, which means then you're not fighting against the old habits you're trying to change, plus trying to be what this person is asking you to be, which isn't resonating. And so when you find that right person, then you have this beautiful synergy that helps you promote yourself and pull yourself forward.
Absolutely. And most of my clients are former clients. Some of them have become like really good friends, but all of them we're friendly with. And, people can always, it happens, 2 years later, hey, can I just ask you this really quick question? I always provide support to my obviously current and past clients as well. So yeah, when you build that connection, you build that trust, and people want to come back. And even if you haven't worked with them in a professional capacity for years, they want to come back, and because you just built that good connection and that relationship with people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And two, we didn't talk about, you work online and in person?
I mean, I'm here in Alberta, so I will work with people if they're local, but I most probably 90+ 90+% of my clientele are virtual. So I work with people all over North America primarily. I had a few people overseas, but mostly people all over North America. Yeah, so it's mostly virtual.
Okay, so which makes it easy for appointments and access.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you typically work one-on-one with someone, and then you're just launching into some group activities as well.
That's correct. Yeah. So the focus for 23 will be, promoting and getting the group program up and running. Yeah. But I do work with people one-on-one as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise and what programming you have available. It's lovely to hear the kinds of things that you're doing and your approach.
Well, thank you for having me, and enjoying my tea as well.
I'm glad. So usually we finish with trying to recommend some kind of a movement activity that you could, recommend people use today, just to go out there and do something a little bit different. Do you have something that you'd offer for today?
Yeah, I'll offer two things. So again, I kind of already alluded to it. So I'd say number one, if you're just short of time or just getting started, just getting off back into it, if you will, just start with walking, whatever your pace is, and then build up to something that maybe you can increase the pace, or even at some point, maybe lightly jog for 30 seconds for every 5 minutes you walk, and slowly build up to that. So I think walking, just, Homo sapiens were just built to move and built to walk. So that'd be number one. And then if I could add another thing is, depending on where you are in your stage of life, is just find that thing you used to love to do. Maybe it's when you were a kid, maybe it's swimming, maybe it's dancing, just again, that play aspect, just go out and be silly about it. Maybe it's with your grandkids or your kids. And I got young girls, and we have the Nintendo Switch, those dance games, where you just follow the choreography, and we'll do that. And, 3 or 4 songs, like, whew, you're moving and you got a workout in, and it's good, and you're having fun and being silly. And like I said earlier, play tag with my nieces and nephews and my kids, during the summer. And so you just find whatever like really resonates with you, maybe something you used to do or something you've always wanted to try, and just go for it. Just do it, whatever it is. But again, you can always get to always walk as a default.
That's right. And the thought that I had when preparing for today was about the spiral action. And when we move straight forward all the time, our organs don't have the opportunity to talk to each other, because the fascia that surrounds them doesn't move as much as when we spiral in action. So in Tai Chi, we might, usually if I'm doing a seated version of exercises, I might just go from being straightforward to spiraling towards one knee and then spiraling back to the other knee. And just that little action gives you the opportunity to get all of the organs talking to each other, and then they start to work in a much more efficient way. And I can do the same with the hands, just with a turn. And then you have the strength that comes, in this case, is from the elbow to the tip of my hand. So for those people who are on a podcast who can't see my hands, I'm just turning them. So the palm goes forward, and then the back of the hand is forward. So I'm just rotating back and forth. But you have this lovely spiral action, which then, as you were talking about bone density, starts to build the bone density. And it's a beautiful action that we use through all of our Tai Chi movements, but very simple for people to use. And if you're not sure what I just said because you're listening to the podcast and you couldn't see, I do have those up on my YouTube channel, which is at Michelle Greenwell. So that's an option to check that out if you're interested in what a spiral action might look like.
Michelle, can I make 2 comments on what you just said there? And I love that. So one, I was just that, that spiral action, if you look into nature, so many things in nature are, not only geometric, but also have spiral in it. How plants grow and how water flows, et cetera. So, I think that's a cue. I'm huge into sort of, what the earth wants to tell us and how to benefit that. And again, that's maybe a little bit more advanced. So that's the one thing. So I love that, the spiral. And the other thing too is more so not necessarily for everyone, but definitely people who have like knee pain. Walking backwards, obviously at your own pace that you can do it, is is very beneficial. So I also like, having people, and myself included, walk backwards for a little bit. And then we didn't talk about stretching. I'm very big on stretching. Coming from a back injury that I had, very big on stretching, but I think stretching in different planes as well, if it allows, twisting and leaning to one side, leaning back, leaning forward. So yeah, just movement. Your body has to move in all different planes. So I thank you for bringing that up. That's a super important point.
Yeah. And if you're looking from a perspective of goal setting and moving forward, sometimes moving forward means you need to know how to move backwards, because you get stuck in one way, one dimension. And so then being able to move side to side, forward and backwards, up and down, that all creates the opportunity to let go, move forward, and go with ease. So when walking, it is fun to walk different ways and take the time to not just be forward, which is where a lot of us might be heading all the time. Yeah. Beautiful.
Love
so
that.
You've been listening to Be Well with Michelle Greenwell. This episode is sponsored by the Cape Breton Tea Company, bringing a little bit of the countryside and hospitality into your day with a luxurious cup of the tastes and sounds of Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. And you can find that at cbtcompany.square.site. So CB, and then T is spelled out TEA, and then company is spelled out .square.site. Deepak, thank you so much for joining me. Have an awesome rest of your day.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a fun conversation, and you as well. And Happy New Year to everyone out there.